Today is the day when Sirius Hyperion, the younger brother of the current emperor, arrives in Duke Road's territory in the northern region. Some may perceive him as an innocent child, but the truth is far more complex. Sirius is actually an illegitimate child, a fact that is justified by the discriminatory behavior of the former emperor. Adding to the intrigue, there is a legend that the Hyperion family has wolf blood running through their veins. And Sirius is the first in many years to bear this lineage. This revelation has caused a great upheaval within the empire, leading the crown prince to eliminate anyone who advocated for Sirius to become the heir, including the emperor himself. Strangely, the crown prince couldn't bring himself to kill Sirius, perhaps because he represents the manifestation of the wolf. After years of hiding, Sirius was banished and sent to live in the north with Duke Rad and his children. Now, let's turn our attention to the female lead of our story. Despite her young age, she seems to have a deep understanding of Sirius. Unfortunately, she is constantly bullied by her siblings. Allow me to introduce them one by one. The Duke of Road has 7 children. The first one ventured out alone to hunt demons in the midst of winter and tragically perished. Shockingly, her father didn't even flinch at the news. The second son met his demise due to poison, while the third daughter took her own life under the immense pressure imposed by the Duke. The most anticipated child simply disappeared, and the 6th child passed away at a tender age. Astonishingly, the deaths of his children seemed inconsequential to the Duke, as if they were not his own flesh and blood. Only the 4th sister, Courtney, the 5th brother, Joseph, and the 7th child, our beloved and adorable female-led, remain. On this particular morning, her father advises her to discard any useless emotions if she wishes to succeed in claiming his throne. The emperor's decision to send Sirius to this den of sociopaths and mad men is driven by his expectation that his brother will meet his demise due to the Duke's cruelty. This adorable little girl, who seems oblivious to her siblings' teasing, walks away from them with perfect behavior. She's from another world and has already read this novel in the sales department. She doesn't know how she ended up in the actual story but is playing a role of no significant presence. Nevertheless, she's glad to know the future where Sirius fulfills his ambitions and reigns supreme. All she has to do is stay still and do nothing, except stick by the main character. Suddenly, she hears the familiar voice of a young child outside the room. It's Sirius. Panic sets in as she wonders what to do. So, she decides to keep quiet. When he leaves, she walks towards the door to close it, but someone grabs the doorknob and pulls it open. And there, she comes face to face with a handsome young boy with silver hair and purple eyes. Wow, he doesn't look terrifying at all. In fact, he's so cute. Her plan to live quietly is now doomed. As she looks at him closely, she realizes he is undeniably handsome. As time goes by, his face becomes more captivating. For this reason, she mustn't make a mistake. Suddenly, Sirius grabs her hand and compliments her on her beauty. She can't believe what she's hearing. Sirius continues to talk about how she resembles her father and asks for her name. The girl, Elena Rad, introduces herself. However, she's quite surprised that he knows so much about her. Moreover, he didn't address her properly, just calling her Elena. Suddenly, he takes a look around her room, which is plain and dark. But she likes it the way it is, especially compared to her previous room. At this point, Elena is kind of hoping that he'll leave her alone. But instead, he faces her and exclaims that she's useless. Elena sat on the floor, her mind filled with questions about what could be troubling Sirius. As he walked away, his thoughts lingered on her captivating golden eyes, which he considered to be the most precious treasure. Despite her beauty, he couldn't help but notice her vulnerability, making her seem useless to him. Just then, Duke Road introduced Sirius to everyone, and Elena couldn't help but notice something peculiar about her own golden eyes. They possessed the ability to read others' emotions, a power that had been passed down through generations. The intensity of the golden light in her eyes determined the strength of this ability. Duke Road, having won a fierce competition, became the head of the Road family and used this power to his advantage. Elena couldn't help but wonder why he showed no emotional reactions. Suddenly, Courtney interrupted their conversation, eager to be included in everything. As Duke Road left, he insulted Elena, calling her useless, which left her trembling with humiliation. It became clear that the reason for the Duke's disdain towards her was because of her extraordinary eyes. Among those who possessed this power, her eyes were unparalleled. They could only see golden, the perfect shade that allowed her to perceive others' emotions. However, when her eyes showed no change in emotion, people began to doubt their authenticity. Just then, Courtney picked a fight with Sirius, reveling in the idea of hierarchy and always being on top. Elena was curious about what would unfold but decided it was best to leave unnoticed. However, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was following her. Meanwhile, Courtney seethed with anger as Sirius walked away, and Elena sensed a bright red aura surrounding her. Suddenly, everything takes a turn for the worse as Courtney starts pointing fingers at Elena, trying to put her in a tight spot. To them, Elena is nothing more than an insignificant insect, not even part of their so-called hierarchy that they created just to stroke their own egos. Clearly, the Duke warned Courtney not to mess with Elena, but she is determined to get rid of her. Could it be jealousy because of Elena's eyes? Unlike Elena, who always suffers from her father's cruelty, her eyes are being treated well. Out of habit, Elena tends to close her eyes to protect the precious treasure she possesses, even though she never wanted it in the first place. Whenever someone hates her, her body reacts with pain. This time, Sirius can no longer bear seeing Elena trembling in fear, so he speaks up. Courtney rudely responds to him, and Sirius shows them who's the real deal. Elena can now sense an emotion from Sirius. Her eyes can feel that he's a bit annoyed. On top of that, he effortlessly dismisses Courtney. Now that she experiences the treatment she usually gives to others, she feels embarrassed. Just then, Sirius grabs her arm and walks away. This time, Elena manages to escape from her siblings with Sirius' help. However, she still wants to be alone in the attic to avoid further conflicts. Unfortunately, Sirius keeps following her around, even though she initially doesn't want to talk to him. She has no choice but to engage with him because she can't let him follow her into her room. Reluctantly, she turns around and surprises him with a question. His eyes reveal his shock, and it's kind of cute because he seems like a young boy. But our little boy already knows where she's going, and he will definitely follow her. Elena taps her feet on the floor, indicating her frustration and stress. Suddenly, Sirius emits a joyous aura. Elena's face turned red with embarrassment as she realized that her neighbor, Sirius. Feeling frustrated, she quickly said her goodbyes and hurried inside. Before Sirius entered his room, he made sure to wish her a good night's sleep. In her room, Elena couldn't help but feel embarrassed and frustrated by the situation. She couldn't understand why he kept following her, only to find out that they were simply going in the same direction. Thinking about her father's lack of concern, Elena tried to calm herself down. After all, they were both adults and nothing would happen, right? As Elena pondered over the events, she couldn't help but think about Courtney's behavior earlier. The Duke had warned her not to threaten Elena's life, which only meant that he wanted her golden eyes. It was clear that he had never treated her right from the beginning. In her past life, Elena was deaf but still managed to read. That was how she knew about the story of Sirius Hyperion. However, before she could finish the novel, she was reincarnated as the Duke's youngest daughter. The Duke was known for his cruelty, and meeting him face to face made Elena question why she was born into such a messy family. In the novel, Sirius was the perfect male lead who defeated everyone in his path. The main characteristic of a mass-market main character is malice, and Sirius embodied that perfectly. He was too cruel to pursue a romantic path, so there was no female lead. His goal was to be the strongest in the world and destroy Duke Road himself. Despite the bad ending, the process was satisfying as Duke Road brilliantly portrayed Sirius as a madman. However, when Sirius saw Elena for the first time, he smiled and called her perfect. He even named the child and instructed the servants to take care of her properly. It was all very strange indeed. The deranged individual in the book showered her with special attention, visiting and playing with her every single day. Initially, she believed this to be a plot twist, making her the main character of the story. However, one day, the Duke ordered everyone out of the room, and the usual hazy white mist surrounding her father transformed into a furious red with black smoke. Poor baby Elena trembled in fear, longing for her father to pat her head and brush her hair. Instead, the Duke reached for her neck and began to choke her. Just before losing consciousness, she heard him mention her possession of the golden eyes. Since then, she has been subjected to tests to verify the authenticity of her eyes. Despite the constant threats, she maintained a smile, afraid to admit that her caring father had changed. The sight of this radiant joy seemed like a distant memory. Everything felt meaningless, as the Duke only desired her golden eyes, not her. However, she had to endure a little longer. Sirius would soon bring an end to everyone's lives, including hers. Suddenly, she heard crying from the room Sirius occupied. Even after putting on a brave face, he still cried himself to sleep when no one was watching. The question lingered. What caused his tears? Elena contemplated whether to comfort him or stick to her plan of doing nothing. She couldn't risk altering the story. However, Sirius was the only one she could confide in for comfort. With hesitation, she opened the door to find him, but she mustn't do anything to jeopardize the plan. For the Rhodes family's journey to proceed smoothly, Sirius' heart must remain unchanged. They're not even close enough for her to go and comfort him that night. She resists the urge to get up and visit him, so she doesn't get a wink of sleep due to worry. In some random dream, she is attacked by a monster. Rationally, it's a waste of energy to worry since Sirius is the main character who will shape his future better than anyone else. When she opens the door to have breakfast, she is too frightened to see Sirius sitting on the window, waiting for her to come out. Elena has this habit of doubting that people would think of her nicely. Sirius just keeps looking at her without saying anything. Even though she can see through him, Elena decides to ignore him. But Sirius starts asking if she slept well. Obviously, she didn't, but she doesn't want to admit it. Now she's getting delusional, thinking that after crying all night, he became kinder when he woke up. That isn't possible. However, he looks really happy, so she assumes that he just cried in his dreams. Elena proceeds to the dining room, and as always, Sirius follows her. It's only been a day since they met, but he looks more handsome in her eyes. Even his hair is still puffed up from waking up, and he's smaller than her. In no time, he'll be taller than her, but she can't help but admire how cute he is right now. Elena opens the door to the dining hall, where everyone has already eaten and left. In the Rhodes family, Elena has to wait for everyone to finish eating before digging in with the leftover food. She couldn't care less if this family crumbled down one day, she just has to trust Sirius with it. Suddenly, Elena smells a familiar dish. It has been quite a while since anything decent was left. Cyrus attempts to prevent her from going to the kitchen, but it turns out that no one will come to serve, even if she waits all day. So, she decides to show him how to prepare her own breakfast without the help of servants. Sirius expresses his admiration for how simple it is, which surprises Elena. She can't believe that he isn't complaining, considering his royal blood. Just as she is about to eat, she notices that he is just staring at her without even lifting his spoon. She is incredibly hungry, but it's difficult to eat when someone is looking at her like that. Finally, Elena realizes why he always stares at her without saying a word. It's as if he's waiting for her to greet him before responding. It all started when she greeted him with a "good night's sleep" first. But why is he so fixated on waiting for her greeting in the first place? Elena starts to imagine him as a greeting fairy, with his adorable face and the sunlight reflecting off his silver hair. However, he is still a young beast who will soon seek revenge on those who have wronged him, unlike Elena, who still relies on others. However, she is worried about why he cried last night. Suddenly, he stands up and leaves, leaving her wondering why he didn't greet her back. Elena watches from the balcony as Sirius begins his first day of training in her defense. She's just bored and looking for something interesting to watch, with no other special reasons. She tells herself to relax and not be so defensive about it. But there's nothing she can do except get bored from doing absolutely nothing. After the Duke withdrew his affection from her, it was widely believed that she would soon meet her demise. However, unlike her unfortunate sixth brother who was left to perish in the cold, the Duke promptly summoned a doctor to attend to her. This unexpected turn of events left the servants perplexed, unsure of how to behave around Elena. Consequently, they resorted to treating her like a ghost, further isolating her in her own existence. As boredom settled in, Elena found solace in observing Sirius' progress in swordsmanship. Despite his small stature, he displayed remarkable skill, thanks to his heightened senses and beastly intuition. There was no denying that he was becoming a formidable force, but was he truly a monster? Suddenly, the Duke halted Sirius' training, expressing disappointment in his performance. He ordered his men to bring a more challenging sword practice tool. determined to push Sirius further. With lightning-fast precision, Duke effortlessly struck the target, his flawless technique and incredible speed leaving everyone in awe. However, instead of praising Sirius for his impressive display, the Duke berated him, labeling him as ignorant, triggering a traumatic response from Elena. Overwhelmed by fear and memories of her father's violence, she retreated into herself, her body losing all strength. If she had known that this would be the outcome, she would have never ventured out to witness such brutality again. Trembling, she covered her ears, desperately trying to block out the impending harm. She vowed to never allow herself to be subjected to such mistreatment, nor tremble like a helpless pup. That night, regret washed over her as she realized she hadn't eaten anything. She anxiously awaited news of Sirius' well-being, hoping that he would emerge unscathed from the Duke's wrath. According to the book, no matter what punishment Sirius may face, he will never back down. So, the main character only needs to worry about herself. However, she hears a loud thud coming from Sirius's room, followed by a painful groan. Even though she can't see him, she knows exactly what situation he's in. In the novel, the Emperor has put a bounty on Sirius's head and even allowed Duke Rad to kill him if he wanted to. Now, Sirius is in agonizing pain, and it bothers her even more. She can't bear to see him suffer like this. She knows she has to help him, but she's also concerned that interfering in the story might prevent Sirius from achieving victory. However, his suffering is too much, and she can't let him die. She convinces herself that Sirius is her insurance, her only protection in the future. There's nothing scarier than getting to know Sirius in this state because he's not in his right mind. He's also wary of people who want to help him. Still, she takes a quick peek to check if he's okay. But when she goes further inside, she's taken aback by his condition. His small body is trembling as he tries to soothe his aching shoulders. He's covered in dirt and bruises, in such a terrible state that he can't even respond. How could the Duke treat him so heartlessly? Luckily, Elena has some spare medicine. She needs to hurry before it's too late. She finally witnesses the extent of the damage that her family, particularly her father, can inflict on someone. It seems that every part of the young prince's body bears some sort of injury, if not bruises. To make matters worse, he also suffers from a burning fever. Poor Cyrus, Duke Rhodes has truly gone too far. How could he harm such a young child? Elena takes it upon herself to try and reduce his fever by gently wiping his body with a cold wet towel. Despite being unconscious, Cyrus flinches from the touch, indicating the immense pain he must be enduring. Careful not to cause any further harm, Elena successfully administers fever medicine and disinfects his wounds. Gradually, the prince's temperature begins to decrease, and he appears peaceful as he sleeps, as if no pain or suffering has ever touched him. However, his battered and swollen hands tell a different story. They don't quite match the serene expression on Cyrus' face. As Elena applies ointment to reduce the swelling, she notices him crying once again. This makes her ponder about Cyrus and the role he is meant to play in the novel she finds herself in. Elena struggles to comprehend how someone destined to become a cruel and cold-hearted person, someone strong enough to withstand the harsh environment of her household, could shed tears. She realizes, though, that he only cries when he is alone. All she can think about is how young and innocent the supposed main character is at this moment. In a tender gesture, Elena reaches for Cyrus' hands to offer comfort and stays by his bedside for a little while longer. The next morning arrives, and with it, the same routine of Cyrus eagerly awaiting Elena's emergence from her room.